I thought this screen looked kind of crowded, and I wasn't really looking directly at it, but I realize now it's because White March Part 1 and Part 2 are both individually listed as their own headings. So the two DLC expansions that probably won't be relevant for dozens of hours are still like preserving a chunk of space, I suppose. The fact that it's divided into Part 1 and Part 2 is a little weird. I get that it's two DLC packs, but it's a little... If you, unless there's some like a really something noteworthy about it being two parts, like the whole main story, it doesn't get two headings. So it having two headings in the quest log for the two DLC chunks is like a little weird. Do you think it would just be the White March, or just nothing? Just put it in the main story tab, since usually people consider it, well, it's a mixed bag. Like a lot of the Dragon Age stuff is like more side content, but if you have like a major expansion that is like the expansion to the game, and that's basically all the game got, usually you're like gonna basically just act like it's part of the main story, either in the middle of it or an extension of it or something. Because while the side content is side content, if you paid for it, you probably want to play it. It'd be almost weird not to. We got Edér over here. We've been to the Temple of Aloth. There's roads that leave the place. Black Hammer Smithery, we're way over that place. So here's the cheating or murdery situation that's super skeevy, but not entirely certain. Then here's Black Hammer Smithery. He wants a shipment, so we need to go find that. Windmill's been taken care of. Alfra. You know what? I've heard about this Alfra. In particular, the windmill guy seems to like Alfra. And her name reminds me of Ulgra from Dark Crystal. I'm trying to remember if we've actually interacted with Alfra. Yeah, I don't recognize this place. She's got a cat. I think I skipped right past this. This worn dog-eared book is titled Travels Upon the Selgus Sea. There's an etched illustration of a vast finned leviathan. Which we know exists in this world, because apparently past the Dreadfire, yeah. There's this like horrible expanse of Leviathan-filled waters where nobody goes any further, so that's functionally the end of the world, in a more literal sense than the version that people just kind of hypothetically supposed existed in reality in our olden times. A dear wooden woman is standing in front of the fireplace, humming a quiet tune to herself, or perhaps to her unborn child, for she is quite clearly pregnant. She turns her head slightly as you enter.
Gods keep you.
Well, finally, I was starting to think. The woman makes a startled noise when she turns around and sees you. Oh. I'm sorry. I was expecting someone else. She gives you a cautious smile. Can I help you? I just arrived in Gilded Vale. I thought I'd get to know the locals. Were you with one of the caravans? She looks at you hopefully. Master Odema's by chance. You knew Odema? Well, no more than most here, I'd say. He doesn't usually come this way, but they say he's a reliable old fellow. She pauses, brows furrowing. Wait, why do you say new? I'm sorry, but the caravan was attacked. I was the only one to survive. Alfra covers her mouth with a hand, eyes wide with horror. For a few moments, she can manage nothing but a strangled, voiceless gasping, her eyes brimming with tears. I knew. I told her it was a dangerous path to take. Calisca was always so certain she could take on any danger. Alfra sniffs. Oh, my poor sister. I'm sorry, stranger, I can't believe she's gone. If only I hadn't called her here. If I hadn't written to her, she might still be alive somewhere. Alpha's face crumples, and a solitary tear slides down her cheek. Calisca mentioned that she thought you needed help. Perhaps I can provide some assistance. Alpha looks at you with some surprise before dabbing at her nose with a sleeve. That's kind of you to offer, but I don't know if I could impose this on you. It's not a small favor. Alpha wipes at her eyes. I'm worried about the baby. About the legacy. I told Calisca as much as I could, but all I know is that for a long time now every child born in Gilded Vale has been soulless. Empty. It's happened to so many mothers, and Lord Radric, he's exiled all of them, calling it a sign of God's disfavor. She sniffs. With my Hathort gone, I don't know how I'd manage if I lost my home, too. I hoped Calisca would help me. They say Ranga, the old midwife, knows a way to prevent the child being hollowborn, but she moved south to Anslog's Compass 2 seasons ago. The journey is too far for me. I can't make it as I am, but I don't have anyone else. Now, with Calisca gone. More tears run down her face. Please, can you help me? I'll find Ranga for you. Whoa. Kind wayfarers and gold-packed knights. I don't even know what those mean. Are those factions? They must be, right? Because I don't even... Those aren't races you can pick. They might be specific backgrounds that have some combination or something. Alpha blinks, eyes wide. You will? Oh, gods bless you. Here. I'll give you coin to pay her with. You needn't trouble yourself with that. I think it's a drink she fashions out of... Well, I'm not sure, but it shouldn't be too much of a burden to carry back. You've gained 20 copper. Anslog's Compass is what we call the lagoon to the south. You'll have to cross the wilds to get there. That's what keeps me from trying it myself. She clasps her hands together. Thank you, again, truly. You'll be saving us both. She sets a hand on her stomach, smiling through her tears. Oh, a debt of sorts. Calisca was one of the ones helping us out in the intro. And then she died very abruptly and without purpose, which is a bummer. Both of them did. Heoden and Calisca just were gone, like, in an instant because something basically blew up. Their death, the thing that killed them is definitely going to have long-standing significance in the narrative. It's an obvious setup, but them dying to it was completely irrelevant. They weren't even knowingly murdered by anybody. They just were caught up in a thing they happened to witness. It's like watching a completely unrelated film, and then it ends with like the main characters getting hit by a nuclear missile that just has nothing to do with anything. Which is, oh right, I played that game. That was a real game that was actually made, and I played it. God, that was annoying. And I can't say what it was because it's spoiling the ending of it by naming it at all. So now that I've said the ending, I can't name the thing, but. Yeah, that was a real thing somebody thought was a good idea. Just have a story that ends with a completely unrelated nuclear blast that kills everybody and has nothing to do with anything that happened in the game up to that point, really. And was only set up by like one audio log in one corner of one map, which is great storytelling. But that's more or less what happened to those guys. That's relatively par for the course. There's nothing more dangerous than being a companion character in the intro of an RPG, because they have a tendency to be very temporary characters. I'd like a room, please. Certainly, you're always welcome. Ah. This is interesting. Inns allow characters to rest without using camping supplies. Cheap rooms are usually available, but if you have copper to spend, you may consider the more expensive options. The bonuses they provide last for a long time and affect the entire party. Potentially, that's interesting. They're not massive bonuses, but they're super long-lasting, lasting until you rest twice. Sleep is a powerful tool in this game. And I do have money lying around. 2 resolve or 1 perception, 1 mechanics. Oh, that's the bigger one, technically. They're more branching. They're very different outcomes of sorts. And here's your recruit adventurers. Ah, I can recruit a level 2 adventurer now. It's twice as expensive. Ha. You know what? I have some money. Why not? Let's fight my instinct to never spend money. I always end up with a mountain of income by the end of these RPGs. Your sleep is restless and fevered. Oh no, I'm not gonna get my 2 resolved then. Assaulted by hisses and whispers, blanketed with a suffocating anxiety, you open your eyes to awaken, and find yourself in front of Gilded Vale's gallows tree, the creaking of its ropes growing louder in your mind until the sound is deafening. Hanging from the tree is an old dwarf woman whose face has shriveled inward like moldering fruit. Her head hangs limply to one side. As you look at her, she looms larger and larger in your mind until she is mere inches from your face. Suddenly her head snaps up, and her eyes open, and they are empty. And behind them is a vast nothingness that makes your stomach drop. Her mouth slowly parts, and with a gust of rancid air she speaks a word. Watcher. You jolt awake, the foul smell of the dwarf woman's breath still permeating your nostrils. Sweat runs down your face in thick droplets, and your skin is soaked from head to toe. You remember the woman. You remember seeing her decaying face when you spoke with the magistrate. He called her an animancer. Though it fills you with a new, queasy apprehension, you feel a strange compulsion to see the woman once more, if only to confirm she is truly dead. I just keep getting experience. I don't think this game has a very high level cap, so I'm really shocked by how much I keep getting chunks of experience, but oh yeah. That maximum keeps like doubling each time, so I can see why. Yeah, as far as I could tell, the recommendation to rest was necessary to progress things in this town, where there's probably more to do. But this was recommending that I rest, and now it wants me to check out this dwarf woman. Concerningly. So begins our second day in Gilded Vale. I think our character by the end of this, or even in the near future, is going to very much be wishing that he hadn't spent all that time, hadn't happened to witness that ritual and be imprinted upon in this way. Is that the glowy? That's the dwarf woman, right? The one that's glowing? I'm thinking I can visit their... yeah. I bet I can witness their histories. I think that's what was being set up by the guy who got killed by a bear that I failed, essentially, to help. Because bears are hard to fight, as it turns out. And if there was other solutions for the problem, I'm not sure what they were at the moment. Hello, Edér. Definitely a trope that they lean really heavily on in RPGs, is this protagonist who gets some kind of special insight or gets touched by something and then becomes the only one who can witness or solve a particular problem. You have the Inquisitor in Dragon Age Inquisition, who becomes the only person who can seal rifts. You have the Grey Warden in Dragon Age Origins, which is basically the last of all the Grey Wardens, and so they have the tie to the core conflict there. You have Commander Shepard touching the conduit, not the conduit, the beacon, in order to get a special message about the Reapers immediately in the game. And then in this we have this ritual that has us being able to communicate with the dead like a necroscope. The squat, distended body of an elderly dwarf woman dangles from a thin, crooked bow that sags at the tug of her noose. The bloated purple flesh of her neck, worn away in patches like moth-eaten linen, bulges over the ropes that suspend her, and her lifeless head lolls forward rigidly from one side to the other when the breeze shifts. You perceive a faint glow around her that casts no light on its surroundings, but there is a tepid warmth to it, and you feel somehow that you could reach out and touch it. Not with your hands, but with some aspect of yourself that has no worldly dimension. You take a deep breath, clearing your mind, focusing on your objective. As you exhale, you find yourself spreading out toward the hanging woman, perceiving all that lies between you and her with new, unfamiliar awareness. Once you have expanded enough to reach her, there is a sudden jolt to your mind, a ringing electric surge of images and words and sounds. Involuntarily, you shut your eyes and feel yourself being pulled down to some deeper consciousness in a space occupied only by you and the hanging woman. And when you open them again, she is staring at you with eyes clouded in a milky fog, her body still swaying in a wind you no longer feel, from a tree that stands planted in the misty void. The woman gives a slow nod of her head, the rope creaking as she does so, and she smiles at you.
Have you come here for me, dear, or have you gotten lost? Ah, it is both, I think. Yes?
I need to understand something that's happened to me. She nods, a look of pity on her face, as though consoling a child.
The world looks a little different than it used to, is that it? Feels like you're noticing things for the first time that have always been there.
She nods.
You have seen past the shroud. It only takes an instant. Your soul remembers, yes? Remembers how it sees when it leaves the body, like being reminded of a dream you had forgotten. You are a watcher now, and a watcher you will stay.
What's a watcher?
What indeed? Long hours have many animancers spent studying such things. Not I, though. Not I. I'll tell you what I know, though, since fair is fair, and here we are visiting, you and I, and it reminds me of better times. Souls pass on, some say through Audra stones, which are the blood veins of the world. They leave the world for a time and are reborn into it, sometimes more than they were before, but usually less and seldom the same. For all souls there is a time where they do not live, yet have not passed on, and those souls roam the world, same as you or I, either living or lost. But no one sees them because they have forgotten how. A watcher sees, though, knows what to look for. And sometimes they know a person just by looking at them, know where they've been in ages past when their bodies were other bodies. See memories even their owner can't recall. A wonder to behold when all goes well, a wonder.
What do you mean when all goes well?
Oh, nothing to be afraid of, I'm sure. It's just much to take in for some. Sometimes there's trouble sleeping or other difficulties.
She smiles at you reassuringly, fanning out a tuft of long whiskers that sprouts from one of her cheeks.
You should see old Meerwald. He could tell you much more than I. A watcher just like you. Helped many in his day. Took up in an old keep no one would claim. Not far, not far. Kadnua, beyond the Black Meadow. He will welcome the company.
Am I imagining this?
No, I think not. A pity that. It would be simpler. A mercy even. To not have to wander anymore, no? Alas, we are here, you and I. Wherever here may be.
How are you able to speak to me?
Is that what we're doing? Perhaps it just seems that way. Perhaps it is the easiest way for your mind to make sense of it. I think it is a very good choice.
I think I survived a Beowick. Do you know why that would be?
Did you now, dear? My, that would be something, wouldn't it? Could be luck, could certainly be. A storm can be a careless thing. Or maybe it got its hands around your soul but couldn't pick it up. A soul can be heavy if it stayed in one piece through its time. Strong souls, we call them in the trade. Cold, I mean. Called them. Those days are all behind me, no?
I like the touch of the idea that, like, what we're doing isn't necessarily talking, but it's the easiest way to justify how we're communicating, so it's just what we land on when we rationalize it. I'm confused why everyone is so shocked that I survived a Beowick, including myself. Unless I'm I think I might be... There might be two Beowicks in the story. That might be what we're getting at. I'm not entirely sure. The one from the intro, sure. It's a dangerous thing that rends at your soul, apparently. We talked about it as being this, like, thing that pierces us and stuff like that. But the Beowick is not what wiped out my friends. In fact, the Beowick has 0 confirmed kills in this story at the moment. But I would imagine there's probably somebody from the caravan or the attackers who wasn't completely dead. So, they got killed by the Beowick. At least Odema did. So probably 1 confirmed kill at least. But Beowick, its lethality was not proved by actually killing anybody. It was just its reputation. So the idea that I'm any kind of chosen one or special for surviving the Beowick doesn't seem right, because Calisca and Heoden both also survived the same thing. We all escaped by following Odema's advice of leaving and taking shelter in a cave, which apparently was all that it took to survive the Beowick. So, sure, it's a dangerous thing, and maybe even a supernatural thing, but it still obeys the kind of rules a lot of storms do of just, you know, take shelter, run away, be not there, and then you're good. And we were able to do that, even though it might have been hard to do. And I imagine this world has other storms that aren't soul-related, so it seems like it's not completely nuts to survive them. But I'm starting to think that maybe they're also calling that shockwave that happened at the ritual of Beowick, because that was the real threat that killed both of them. And that's where I got this touch with the souls and everything, where apparently my soul must have been temporarily displaced from my body, and now I can constantly feel and remember what it was like when I wasn't in a body. And that seems to be the basis of all this, is my kind of rending experience now makes me a trans body person, beyond body, I don't trans-dimensional being, I don't know what the best thing to call that is. So that's the big thing. And I don't know if they're calling that a Beowick because it's also apparently soul-related, probably. And maybe that's what we're alarming about. Because that definitely seems like some of the dialogue feels like it's kind of framing the Beowick as if it's the really important part of my history. But the big important thing that happened in the intro was the shockwave, not the Beowick, unless that's being called a Beowick too, because it also is a soul-rending shockwave force thing? I'm not sure. You said souls break apart over time.
Oh, yes. Entropy. Rimagan's work. We know little of why or how. We lose pieces of ourselves when we die and pick up pieces of others when we are born again, but less than what we lost. We tried to stop it with the animantic sciences, but with little success. No. A very small few resist Rimergan's influence and stay together through some force of defiance, at least for a time. But they all succumb eventually, I think.
She clicks her tongue. So here we have a core problem in this universe. Souls are running out. In this universe, reincarnation is canon. People die, and they come back by repossessing a new body. And in the process, they kind of intermix with other souls, apparently. Like, a chunk of them is lost, and then some fragments from other people is regained. But in that mixing, there's always chunks of them that are just being lost entirely and not picked up by any other soul, which leads to an overall, essentially a decay, an entropy in soul matter. And so we're reducing our soul amounts just overall, like the mass of them, and that must be directly tied to these people being born soulless. Is that, like, population has a tendency to either maintain or increase when it comes to human societies and stuff like that. And if there's a set budget of souls, then that suddenly becomes a problem. I want to know something about you.
Me? I'll bore you to tears, though.
Who are you?
And here I thought you'd come to visit me in particular. Caldara de Baranzi of the Valian Royal Academy of Animantic Sciences. Not the greatest of their number, but I came here all the same because this was where help was needed.
What happened to you? She laughs, a rasping, choked cackle escaping between rows of buttery yellow teeth, causing her body to bob up and down with each spasm. Seeing your blank expression, she catches herself.
Oh, come now. Such a question. As though the answer were plain as a rope tied for strangling. Allow an old dwarf her last bit of cheer. Well, I came where I was needed, didn't I? Offered my services to Lord Radric for a pittance. A humble pittance. I was to examine the Lord's wife, see why the gods have seen fit to poison her womb. Studied her for months, looked high and low for impurities, tested her valence, the permeability of her essence. Do you know what I found?
Tell me.
Nothing at all. A healthy woman, head to toe, blessed with a beautiful soul. Such a sweet woman, too. Meek, but warm-hearted. A few months' time, and the lord of the house demanded answers. For a time, I told him what he wanted to hear. Oh, yes, my lord. She is riddled with imbalances. I must have time to cure her. As the birth drew near, he grew impatient, as lords do. And this is where I've ended up.
What's an animancer?
A student of the soul. Something so basic, yet so poorly understood. But so many breakthroughs have been made in my lifetime. Had been made. Had been. To hear the locals tell it, we're a gang of soul manglers that preys upon the weak-minded. And the worst of us are. But the best of us? The best? Inspirations, miracle workers. My parents were soul twins, miserable before they met, empty inside. It was an animancer who helped one find the other, turned their lives around. You wouldn't believe the stories. Amnesiacs helped to remember their lives. The suicidal brought back from the brink of oblivion. The elderly afforded extra moments to say their goodbyes. How soon we forget when we're afraid. It's a fascinating science. A fascinating time to be alive in a place like Deerwood that does not control the research, no? I love the Valian Republics for many things, but their recent caution will leave them behind, I fear. Of course, dear.
Farewell.
Goodbye, my dear. It was lovely visiting.
Caldara closes her eyes, and her head slumps forward over the noose, and your surroundings seem to bleed into your vision from some unknown place of waiting. Crucible of the Soul. Aloth looks at you through narrow eyes. Are you all right? You seemed lost just now. This happens a lot. You'll have to get used to it. He folds his arms. That's good to know, but I don't suppose you could tell me what that was all about. I'm a watcher. He arched his eyebrows. His arched eyebrows recede into his hood. Well, that is interesting. He gives you a sly grin, and I expect that explains how you survived a Beowulf, Yeah, they're leaning so heavy on the Beowulf. We must be calling that shockwave that happened that was separate from the storm at the beginning also a Beowulf, because that's the only thing I miraculously survived. We just ran away from the first thing, and that worked for everyone else who was clearly not a watcher. In any case, I appreciate your honesty. Since we're traveling together, it's probably wise for us to share these feelings. I think what's throwing me off is that we all got thrown back into a pile of cobbles. And cobbles are relatively large. Like, that's a grain size notation. Like, you have clay, then you have silt, then you have sand, then you have pebbles, then you have cobbles, then you have boulders, is the actual, like these words mean specific things in my field. And, like, a cobble is not small, so if you fell on sand, then you'd be like, it's whatever. Sand is great for cushioning human landings, and in many ways, so are pebbles. And actually, if you get finer grain below sand, it starts to compact into a more solid object. Paradoxically, so it's actually potentially more dangerous to land on. But cobbles, I'm thinking, oh, they bash their heads in on the cobbles. That would be bad. Yeah. So when you have a shockwave and tell me the other two have been thrown haphazardly amongst the cobbles or whatever what terminology was, I interpret that me waking up and them being dead as just like, oh, I landed in a lucky way and both of them landed badly from being thrown. And so they both had their heads damaged and they're dead from hitting rocks with their heads, which is bad for you. So in the moment, I don't see that as a miraculous survival for magical reasons. And so when everyone's talking about a Beowulf, I'm like, I'm so confused because I think they mean the storm, and the storm that they called a Beowulf was survived for completely different reasons. In any case, I appreciate your honesty. Since we're traveling together, it's probably wise for us to share these feelings. Do you know anything about Watchers? Only that they're rare, and they seem to have unique insights into certain soul conditions. He coughs, as you just demonstrated. Let's continue on. We've got a party.
17 and a half.
Excuse me? The smell of pipe smoke, at once earthy and sweet, winds its way into your nostrils. Your eyes trace the smoke to its origin, where you find a broad man with a straw-colored hair leaning against a mossy rock wall, his pipe held to his lips with one meaty hand. He looks you directly in the eye, but the look is not aggressive. He regards you with a peculiar smirk.
17 and a half. Well, could be 18, depending on how you count the dwarf woman.
That's a distressing or funny dark joke, I guess. I'm sorry?
The dwarf woman. You were trying to figure out whether to count her as a full person. I think you oughta.
What are you talking about?
The people hanging from the tree. 18 of them. Well, last I counted, anyway.
Aloth frowns. Is that what you people do for fun around here?
Name's Edér. Though to the people around here, might as well be 19. Don't think I'd put you much higher than 22, 23 tops. You look like the sort that likes to get involved.
Yep, there's the dialogue. There's 18 people dead, and Edér self-identifies as being the 19th person dead, and that I'll be dead a couple people later. That's definitely the line that made me abandon the city immediately without investigating it for side quests when I played this game 4 years ago. And that was the first mistake of many. Second, if you count being a ranger, which I kind of do. What makes you think I was interested in the dwarf woman? He looks at you a moment, his brow arched. A smirk broadens.
I was smoking over here, saw you staring at her. Twice I refilled my pipe. You never so much as blinked. Your mouth was so slack I took you for a Radric at first.
Oh. He has jokes prepared about the leadership here. No wonder he's 19. Impossible. I don't drool half as much. Huh. So you're already familiar. Still, you'll have to forgive my curiosity. Round here we prefer to turn a blind eye to our dead. I've been out of sorts lately. Course. We all got our bad days when we stand perfectly still and stare at corpses for a while without blinking. He winks. Do you know what a watcher is?
Careful, friend. Best not use that word round here. Could be any number of Radric bootlickers within earshot. Ciphers, animancers, watchers. Same thing in the eyes of folks around here, Radric especially. They come through these parts all the time with their cures, preying on the desperate. None of them are who they claim to be. Of course, seeing you with that funny look, I'd be halfway inclined to believe you were having some kind of communion with that dwarf. Either case, maybe I'm not 19 after all. No offense.
You think you're going to be hanged?
The town's had it in for me for a long time now. Only fellow who ever stuck up for me, well, he's number 18 up there. My headman on the farm. Used to be my captain during the war.
Why was your headman hanged? Got involved. Radric sent men down here the other day. Said they had it on good authority someone in town was working with Calisca, plotting Radric's overthrow. Said if he didn't come forward right then and there, they'd hang every last one of us. No one was coming forward. So Swithin, that's my head man, he steps up and says it's him. They took him at his word. He sighs and shakes his head, his eyes fixed in the tree. Bound to happen sooner or later. If not for plotting against Radric, then for protecting me. The war? Saints' War. Only one in my lifetime. Fella decides he's the living incarnation of Eothas. Overthrows Redsaras. Marches on Deerwood. So we gave him a Deerwood and hello. What's a Deerwood and hello?
We blew him up.
He smiles at this. But it is the smile of one recounting a joke for effect rather than enjoyment. Who's Eothas? God of rebirth and redemption. Formerly, anyhow. Maybe they call him something different where you're from. What does your town have against you?
Picked the wrong god. That's what it comes down to. Used to be a lot of Aethys worshippers in Gilded Vale. That mess of rocks over there owns a temple to him, to give you some idea. Then one day, somebody named Widewind shows up on Deerwood's doorstep. Says he's the living flesh of Aethys. Got an army with him. Suddenly, Aethys isn't so popular in these parts. My brother Woden and me, neither of us believed it. No way was that Aethys. He enlisted, and then I did too. But, he didn't make it back. After the war, people took to punishing Aethys worshippers, accusing them of treason. Got real ugly, especially after the legacy started. Folks needed someone to blame. I was safe because I fought, but then this rumor starts that my brother, that he was on the wrong side. And I wasn't so safe anymore. Until my headman stepped in and said they'd have to hang him to get to me. Seems that's no longer a concern. Of course, the townies don't do the hanging these days, but when Raedric's men come, they got no problem doing the pointing.
Aloth glances at you and lowers his voice. You can see why I was eager to leave. Who's Kolsk? Someone who got tired of all the hangings. He's on the run now. Probably will be till they catch him. If you're next to be hanged, what are you still doing here? He gives a half smile. Drinking, mostly. Point of fact, I'm on my way out. Just haven't figured out where I'm going yet. Not a whole lot of places out there who don't think Waidwin's legacy started with Waidwin. We could travel together. Where are you headed? Some place called Cadnua. There's an old watcher there who might be able to help me.
Seem to remember hearing something about that years ago. He tamed that place. People would seek him out for all kinds of things. Troubles of the soul, questions for the departed. Of course, that was back when you didn't have to say watcher with a hush on your breath. A man such as that, there'd be things I'd want to ask him. Don't know why I never thought of it before. Not sure how I feel about setting out with a stranger, and a strange one at that. But, truth be told, you might be the only one in town who wouldn't feel some relief seeing me swing from that tree.
That's a fine reason if I ever heard one.
All right, then. Guess I'll do some sightseeing. Long as you're not the one picking the sights.
He tilted his head forward and gives you a pointed look. Let's get going. And the party grows once again. And now I can have a proper front line. Ah, get out of here. There we go. This is familiar. Sort of. I'm a more explicit melee character than Aloth, obviously. Some semblance of a formation makes sense. But I do want to be in the middle of the party, kind of. It also makes sense not to stand directly behind him, because that just means we're easy to attack with line attacks, and it also means that I have to go around him awkwardly instead of, you know, already having the clearance. Seems like he comes pre-leveled. Yeah, he's level 3. Almost perfectly balanced in experience with Aloth. Well, slightly behind me. So I imagine he might... Either it's a massive coincidence, or he actually happened to... either it's a massive coincidence, or they do actually specifically scale them to your party when they arrive. Which means certain leveling decisions are probably pre-made. So I guess the sooner you get these characters, the more control you would have over their build. And the later you get them, the more they might kind of come pre-leveled a bit. We'll see. There'll be way more variability of how much experience you have versus the various party members potentially later in the game. Because right now there's not a ton of variety of what I could and couldn't have done. But that's once we're in the open world, that's going to significantly increase. Right now, my top priority, because I think we're done here, basically, right? Yeah, we're trying to meet with this Watcher, and we want to go to Anslog's Compass and Black Meadow. So these are all forward directions. And I don't think we have any quests about this location right now. But I'm curious if I can take these people back. Yeah. It seems like I can go back to the Valewood. Maybe I'll give it a good try. See if we can handle it as a group. Take down a bear, uncover a mystery, all that mess. Also go for some climbing. And maybe Edér is even better at climbing. Athletics, 0. Athletics, 0. Athletics, 5. There we go. Yep, that's his top specialty, but he's kind of all over the place. He knows some stealth, he knows some survival, as you'd kind of expect. He's heavy on might and constitution, but he's got average or above on everything else, assuming that 10 equals average in this game. I almost had less than average dexterity, but that went away when time passed, basically. It went away when I went through the character development and found I want to have this origin or whatever, and I think that's what it was. Come to think of it, how's his inventory looking? He's got Saint's War Armor. Oh, I think I remember this having something cool. Edér wore this armor during his time in the Saints' War. Its dark color is unusual, as is its power. Though he admits that the armor has pulled him from the brink of death on several occasions, he claims no one else has ever handled the armor. How it became enchanted is a mystery to even him. Yeah, second chance when he's unconscious. So once per rest, he can just come back to health with a third of his endurance. Yeah. +3 damage reduction against Pierce. Otherwise, he has DR7. So it's pretty good armor. And having your tank get back up when he goes down is pretty good all around. He uses an average speed saber. Plus 20% damage. Is that an enchantment or something else? It just has bonus damage. It's probably of a higher quality. When we talk about those quality levels that things can have. This cape is not of value, though. I think I have a better one, don't I? No? No. Just got these generic ones. Can I... He's supposed to be red and blue. I think I can see the blue, but can I see the red anywhere? Not really. Must just not be the right armor set for that kind of appearance. But yeah, I'm not loaded on equipment items, so most of it doesn't apply. I think I do want the tank to wear a helmet. Oh, is that the red? There it is. There's his color red coming through. Even if it doesn't do anything, it's just kind of fitting visually for him to wear a helmet. On the other hand, yeah, you're wearing a hood. Do I prefer that or not? I don't like the look of the hood because it doesn't look like it physically attaches to any of his body, so it looks like he's just wearing a free-floating hood. Which is normal for a helm and not normal for a hood. Alright. Came through here, this guy whipped my ass. Now I'm 2 levels higher probably, and I have 2 more companions. Which should hopefully increase my chances. Hopefully. Get him! I should learn Edo's abilities, which are hopefully... Yeah, I figured he probably has Calisca's moves to some extent. So, second wind. Bunch of endurance, about half of his endurance once per encounter. Yeah. Knock down. We're familiar with this one. Defender. Plus 2 enemies engaged, -5 deflection. The fighter adopts a more conservative combat strategy, concentrating on locking down enemies that stray too close. The fighter increases his or her number of engagement targets to 3, but at the expense of deflection. So he technically becomes easier to hurt, but he spreads his enemies engaged out so that he can hold aggro on 3 enemies at once, and if they try to disengage, then he'll get a free hit on them, which incentivizes them to stand still and keep fighting him, making him a more effective tank. Definitely don't want to press this now because we're fighting one enemy and only one enemy. But I may want to consider playing with some fun, nasty buttons around here while we're fighting this guy. I don't need Wizard's Double because I'm not being attacked directly. If nothing else, once the fight starts, I may want to get in there with Arcane Assault. 2 per encounter. Unleashes a bolt of magical energy from the grimoire that inflicts raw damage and dazes targets in the area. Ooh. And it's a foe-only attack. 2 per encounter, so I just get that one for free. Cool. I'll probably cast that, but I want to use the Flaming Wounds first so that every attack anybody does is doing bonus damage against this guy. So let's start with just getting the fight started. Alright, fight officially started. This is a foe AoE, right? Yeah. This should make him take considerably more damage just in general. You should be singing right now? Yeah. We have 1 chant down. 2 chants down. This bear should not be lasting, I hope. Ooh, Edér. How you doing, buddy? Good chance to... Oh, right, you should be using knockdown. My bad. Let's use that second wind. That bear is near death already, so that's good. Let's make extra sure that he can't resist anything coming in. Alright, so Yaskier has... Yep, should have reduced damage reduction. Now he should just be taking crazy damage, but he's hitting Edér. Which is not great news for us. Are you even attacking? This is per encounter, so I can just go with it. There we go. There we go. We did it. Edér took some bad hits. Not great news for him, but he's doing okay. That was still a boss fight. Even with 3 people, he still posed a threat. And now we've killed him. Let's put this away in the stash. A figure drifts, suspended, in the musty air of the cavern. Its form and features blur and twist in cascading ripples of incandescence. You feel its energy eddying about your limbs, filling them with a heavy chill. You reach out a hand for the spirit. In the moment of contact, you feel as though you've been struck a blow, head reeling as you tumble helplessly into awaiting darkness. Light blooms at the edges of your vision. You feel the sun at your back, and the weight of a bow in your hand. You know, suddenly, that you've come a long way from the Vale, hunting deer. Now you are standing before a cavern, and the darkness extends far into its depths. Even so, your friend strides out before you, his red cloak flapping at his heels. You follow, heart hammering in your chest, as he leads you deeper into the cavern. There is a roar like thunder, echoing around you. Fear seizes you, casts you stumbling back towards the exit, towards light and escape. You see a glint of steel, and there is a sudden terrible flash of agony behind your knee. You scream, stumble, fall. Your thoughts are chaos, lanced through with pain. But in a moment of terrible clarity, you see your friend look back from the mouth of the cavern, his dagger daubed in crimson to match his cloak. And then there is a great dark shape above you, and then there is more pain. The vision recedes, and you are thrown back into yourself with seemingly resentful force. The corpse lies at your feet, and the specter lingers. In the span of energy between you both, you feel a sense of questioning, of confusion, of anger. I met him on the road, your friend. A sudden lashing of anger emanates from the spirit. Rage and grief seem to pour from the gleaming figure like smoke. I'll find him and see he answers for what he's done to you. For a moment, the spirit seems to burn, bright, and your head fills with a sickly triumph. The spirit seems to weaken with the force of its own exaltation, growing fainter and fainter until you are alone once more. Ah. We helped him move on with the promise. Maybe even the promise alone. You might not even need to actually go further. But there was also a campsite back here? How does that work? That's confusing. Looks like whoever's closest automatically pathed to there. That's interesting. Mice crawl through eye sockets and over femurs. Ah. Oh, there's a pile of bodies. I didn't see it past the magnifying glass. Sorry, buddy. I wonder if you even need to fulfill the promise to make him move on, or if it's just a matter of promising vengeance, and then he moves on. A great sword. Now that I have a proper main tank, it might be worth considering other weapons. Where'd the greatsword go? Did I accidentally put it in the stash? Oh, I sent it to Edér on accident. I meant to send it to the other character. I don't know, do I think it's worth it? I mean, my base damage becomes my current maximum damage, so that's not bad. It is slow though, so I don't know how to pace out these things. But it makes interrupt better, which could be pretty good. I'm not entirely sure of how interrupt works because it's kind of a different mechanic. Let's review. Interrupt determines how likely a damaging attack is to delay the opponent's current or next action. The roll uses an interrupt value on the attacker derived from perception that is compared to the target's concentration derived from resolve. A 1 to 100 roll is made, adding the interrupt. If the result is higher than concentration, the target plays a hit reaction and their current action is delayed. The duration of the delay is determined by the interrupt strength listed on the weapon or attack. An interrupt applied to a character already suffering from an interrupt with a longer duration will have no effect. So I think having one character that's good at interrupt is pretty good for your party's overall composition. And considering Edér's all in tank mode and getting people's attention and so on, he is going to want to keep a shield on. He's a medium shield of 12 deflection. These are basically the same shield, just different visually. Eder. Round. 12, 4, 0. They're basically the same item. Gotcha. I also have the power, of course, to change weapons on the fly. So if I ever feel like I need to switch to shield mode, I actually can. I think I want the shield on you. Yeah. I like the look of it. Oh, even you have a rapier. I feel like maybe you should have some kind of shield if you're going to ever actually use that melee weapon. You might as well have some kind of defense bonus to help you out. I wonder if I should embrace the red. His armor not matching is a bit iffy. Yeah, I think it makes some sense to embrace a particular color for each character just to have them visibly stand out a bit. Wow, you just cannot see the red. It looks like it'll stand out more from here than you see it in game, and it's like, those pants, you would never call them red. An attempt was made. Alright, so I was able to find out the news. Not sure if we can actually help with this revenge method, though. We'll see. I would be surprised to find that they're still there. They're probably not still there because they were rushing to leave. So if you successfully beat the bear the first time in town, then you probably get a chance to confront them in that moment. But because I didn't have the evidence, we didn't confront them. So instead, I think the key was that they said they were moving on to a specific location during that conversation, and I think that's where we need to find them again, if we ever want to have any kind of comeuppance show up. Is that me? Alright, this is my new ability. Oh, wait. Yeah, I didn't get this from leveling up. This was from... Right. I got this from talking to the dwarf. So I have an AoE that just burns health out of all enemies nearby, and it gains health for my character. Endurance. 1.7 meteor radius. That's pretty big. That's 1.7 meters? Its base is 1.25, so yeah, that's 1.7 meters. What? Isn't a meter... That seems too big for 1.7 meters for a radius. Oh well. That's how it works. What's your radius? It doesn't say. Are my chance to radii ever set anywhere? That range is 10 meters. Wait, that range is 10 meters. Oh, range of 8 meters, radius of 1.7 meters. Gotcha. That was my bad. I've got a few healing options because there's second wind here. And then there's Gaun's pledge, and now I can sap health from a group of people. I've got a decent number of good little options here. All right, you are Mr. Climb Boy. I really hope that you can climb this, otherwise we're going to be in trouble. Scale the wall. Yes, ask Edér to climb up. The crumbling wall is of a considerable height, even now, and its uneven surface promises a difficult climb. Who will scale it? Edér. Edér finds a handhold upon one of the large stones and starts to climb. Despite a few loose rocks and awkward angles, Edér makes swift progress and quickly arrives at the top of the wall. Once there, Edér helps you up and over the side. That's what I was hoping for. I didn't want to screw it up. So, my gamble paid off in that yes, we can come back to this location.
Alright then.
I wasn't sure because in this entire genre, there's almost always one or two intro areas that are inaccessible shortly thereafter. I didn't know where to draw the line. Let's put them all on Edér, because then I can keep track of them all. Leather armor. 6 DR. Just really standard. Fulvano's gloves. Oh, dexterity. Though never as famed as he would claim, the Valiant explorer Fulvano was known as an eccentric who wished to see the world. Where possible, he traveled by foot to gain a local's appreciation for the sights, sounds, and smells of the lands he passed through. In practice, however, Fulvano often claimed that his explorations proved only that the world outside of the Valiant Republics was a foul, smelly place that paled in comparison to his homeland. These gloves are said to have belonged to Fulvano, who often found himself in need of some protection as he climbed harsh terrain or maneuvered through the forests. While thick enough to provide some warmth, they are meant first and foremost to be flexible enough not to hinder delicate tasks. He's an explorer, so I gotta wear him. Mandatory. Scrawled letter. I do not think you will ever see this, but you were right, Fulvano. We should have journeyed south together, and been safer for it. I would tolerate all the gloating in the world if I might live to hear it. I have put myself out of reach of the beasts circling below, but I am done for all the same. I do not think I will rise again. Whoever finds this, pray for me. Perhaps in the next life I shall be a trapper of wolves. Damn, spite. You're wearing... You do still have recovery speed. Yeah, it's amount of time between actions. So if you want to be a ranged damage dealer, you want to have as little recovery speed as possible. And yet we still have this. But yeah, that's what he wears is definitely better than generic leather armor, since he's got enchanted leather armor. But hopefully I can move towards enchanted gear that doesn't have 30% recovery penalty, if we can get there. I think I tried to be a melee character that had a weaker armor equipped, when even the spellcaster you get, he settles for a bare minimum of 60 by default. Granted, he was journeying alone, and could potentially get away with more dangerous gear now that he's no longer on his own. From the edge of the wall, you can see old cobblestone road turning south and the patchy trees of the Valewood. Climb down. You swing yourself over the side and pick your way back down to ground level. There we go. Not entirely sure how Edér helped the party get up there, but I'll believe you. Let's head on back to Gilded Vale.